So if you're like me, you probably haven't been doing too much flying because the weather is pretty damn awful. But if you want to know exactly how you can fly legally now the laws have changed in January, let's get into it. Obviously we need a coffee first. Greetings, thanks for joining us. We are today going to be talking about the drone laws in the UK as they change from January the 1st, 2021. Now I know everyone's had a crap year. The British government have decided to rub it in just that little bit more by changing all the drone laws. We have gone over to the EASA rules, the ones just that's going to affect recreational pilots like you and me. I'm not going to go into detail with professional pilots. There's a link in the description for a guy called Ian in London who's gone into the full detail of all the laws, and I urge you to check him out and check out that video if you want to find out exactly how it will affect you if you're flying a larger aircraft than 2 kilos. But at the moment we're just talking about things like the Mavic 2, the Mavic 1 and minis and things like the DJI Spark, and how you can fly it and what's going to affect you personally, what the changes are from last year versus this year. So effectively everyone flying anything over 250 grams has been put into the A3 category, which means that you can no longer fly anywhere, but you can no longer fly anywhere. 150 meters away from residential, industrial and recreational, crucially recreational spaces. Now this is, we have some clarification from the CAA on what these areas mean and how you can use your drones in those areas. It is down to a risk assessment. So if you've done a risk assessment, if you've flown there before and you've had no problems, then you can assess that the risk of that flight is very low, and as long as there's no crowds around, and a crowd is determined under the law. A crowd means anyone in a space that can't reasonably get out of the way of a drone falling from the sky. So if it's a back garden and there's 10 people in there, that's a crowd. If it's a beach and there's 10 people there, that's not a crowd because they can disperse easily. So that's the crucial sort of definition of a crowd as by the new laws for the CAA. So if you're flying anything over 250 grams, if you're flying a Spark or a Hubsan, Zeno Pro, or if you're flying a Mavic certainly, then you are relegated to A3 category flying, which is 150 meters away from any vehicle, structure, building or residential, industrial or recreational area. Now the caveat is that if there's no one around and you assess the flight as being safe, you can fly basically with the rules that we used last year to a certain extent. You can fly 50 meters from those areas and relatively safely, and you won't face prosecution. However, you must always fly 50 meters away from people at all times under the A2 category. Under the A3 category, move to the A2, and you can no longer fly over uninvolved people at all. Even if you are at 120 meters, you can no longer fly over the top of people at any time unless they are involved people, which means that you have their permission or they are with you at the time of filming. You can, and I am probably going to do this in the spring when the weather warms up. It's about -4 today, so I won't be flying. You can take what's called an A2 CFC, a certificate of competence, and it's about £100, and it's a days long study. You've got about 6 hours worth of video to watch, and you can take several mock tests to get yourself lined up. Then you've got to book an actual test with an examiner, so you'll need a video camera on your webcam on your laptop or on your PC, so that the examiner can see that you're in a room on your own and there's no one else helping you. And then you sit a series of questions. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes apparently to do the test, but that would allow you to fly anything under 500 grams. Anything that would normally be in the A3 category under 2 kilos. So your DJI Mavics, the full range of the Mavics, things like the Autel Evo, etc., etc. You can fly those in the A2 category, which is just 50 meters. So that's essentially what we did last year. So the government are whipping you for £100 to fly the same operations you did last year with the same drone, but this year. So remember, stay at home, don't fly your drone, but don't forget to go to work. But now the EASA rules have removed the differentiation between recreational and commercial pilots. So you can, provided you're flying within the category structure, you can now do commercial work. Any footage you have from your drone, photographs, video, you can now sell on stock sites, and you can do photographs of people's houses, provided you have permission, etc., etc., without needing a PFCO or the replacement exam that's coming soon for the replacement for the PFCO, because obviously professional pilots are going to get their ass kicked by the government too, because money's money. So that's kind of good. You can do a little bit of basic professional work without having an exam, especially if you've got a sub 250. If you're using a sub 250 drone, the rules now state you can fly absolutely anywhere, pretty much anywhere. You still have to follow the 120 meter rule. You can't fly over 400 feet or 120 meters in altitude, and that's above the ground, so you don't get extra height above buildings. You still have to keep that below 120 meters. Even if you're stood on the top of a building that's 50 meters high, you can't go 120 meters above that building. You still have to stick to the 120 meters above ground level, AGL. So if you're flying a sub 250 like a Mavic Mini or something small, you can now take off legally from your back garden and film and fly without facing prosecution. You will, however, have to do your CAA registration, because any drone that carries a camera now, even if it weighs 50 grams, any drone that carries a camera, you must have your operator ID from the CAA. That's £9 a year, and it's a 30 question test that takes 5 minutes to do. So go and get that. That's really easy to do, and you will require that even if you're flying a sub 250 drone. But it does mean you can go into the centre of town essentially and fly a drone up to 5 meters away from people. You cannot fly over the top of uninvolved people until you're qualified. But yes, you can fly your Mini or anything under sub 250 anywhere, pretty much anywhere you like, without restriction. So don't forget, you can still fly your over 250 gram drones at the beach. If you go to the beach at 6 in the morning and there's no one there, you're not going to be breaking the law. You've had a look around, you've assessed the risk, and the risk is very low. Then you can still fly without facing prosecution, without breaking the law. I don't think that you'll see any more police officers any more willing to enforce these laws than they did last year. I didn't see a single police officer anywhere I flew last year. They've got far more to deal with than people flying drones. But technically, you would be breaking the law if there was more than if there was a group of people started to come towards you and you're flying on the beach. You need to land. If you're flying in a recreational area and suddenly 5 dog walkers turn up, you need to land. It's a pain in the arse, but there's no way around it, unfortunately, without taking the A2C test, which means you can fly up to 5 meters away from uninvolved people if you put your drone into low speed mode, or 10 meters if you're in regular speed mode. So that's quite good. You still can't fly over the top with an A2CFC, but you can fly essentially the same operations as we did last year in 2020. If anyone actually got out of the house in 2020 to actually fly a drone. So if you fly one of these, or you fly one of these, or one of these, then you're going to need to either take your A2 CFC or stay 150 meters horizontal away from absolutely everything. You are essentially bound to flying in the middle of nowhere and only filming grass. If you're flying one of these, that's impressive. Well done. So, quick recap. If you're under 250 grams, fly where you like. Be sensible, be safe. If you're over 250 grams, don't fly anywhere. You've got to be 150 meters from absolutely everything. If there's an ant on the ground, you can't fly. With a risk assessment, if you assess the area, and especially if you've flown there before and you've had no problems, you've had no dog walkers moan, or no one's come up and said, what are you doing near my house? The chances are you can fly there without being prosecuted, without breaking the law, essentially, because you've assessed it as a safe environment to fly. The fewer people, the better. Just try and film scenery, etc., rather than people. Get permission where possible. If it's an owned land, if it's someone's building or something, ask them permission. You don't need to get permission from the CAA unless it's a restricted area or it's a congested area. You're not going to be able to fly in the middle of an industrial estate. You cannot fly anything over 250 grams taking off from your back garden. Even though you're 50 meters up, once you get there, it's still an illegal flight. So just be aware that the laws have changed. Get yourself over to the CAA website to double check everything if you want. Check out Ian from London's video. I'll put a link in the description. That's pretty comprehensive and goes through all the details of the new laws. Ian from London is the guy that's got some clarification on the risk assessment side of things from the CAA, and he's now just done his A2 CFC. So if you want to get some info on the course, then take a look at that too. Thanks for joining us on Southport. I'll see you later.